What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Hidden Health Podcast. This is Jesse.
I'm Ruben.
We are back again with another Spartan's Journal. What's going on, Ruben?
Good, man. It's been freaking crazy the last 2 weeks since we spoke about this.
Yes, sir.
I know for you it's been crazy. Just a
Mhm.
busy month. Busy month.
Most definitely. Yeah, it's been, it's almost like we chose to move to a 2 week journal entry just at the right timing because right after
Perfect
that,
time.
things really started to speed up in both of our lives with you and your new semester, with over here with the new launch of the company. So yeah, it's been a journey the past few weeks, and very insightful as well. I guess we would say, right?
Yes, sir.
So
A lot of
if you would please begin and let us know how you've been the last 2 weeks. How's the training been, and how's it been integrating with the rest of your schedule?
Yeah, this is probably the first week. Like last week, there was last week and this week, probably like the first week where I'm like, I have to like adjust, especially as the training is starting to ramp up. But my days have just got slammed. Like I had to work on the weekend. Last weekend, I had to like I was working from 9 to 6 because we had a new class coming in as part of my job. I do a workforce training. We got a new class coming in, so super busy. So a lot of the days I had to like either work out in the morning, which I feel like I don't I don't push as hard in the morning, or like I don't have enough in me to like put it put a lot out there. I feel like I do much better in the afternoon. I think I mentioned this in the past in different one. Like, and there's like studies and stuff that showcase like blood and the way it flows in the morning in comparison to the afternoon. Um, but I tried to work out in the morning, and like running in the morning was just like very difficult. Luckily, the skies have cleared up, so the air quality is much better. Um, but like trying to fit in your workout when you're a busy day, you're working through your lunch break because I'm trying not to stay after 5:30, 6 p.m. as I was. Like just trying to figure that out and still getting it done, or having to stack your workouts in a day that you know is not going to be as busy and kind of escape in the middle of the day, go do the workout, come back to work. These are things that I had to adjust. I had to really adapt to the schedule to make sure that my training was still happening, including, since we talked about last time, the HRV stuff. So making sure I wasn't in the red, trying to stay in the high yellow, green. If you use the Whoop app, it shows you all this. So trying to avoid red at all costs. And if I did have a red day, kind of just like took the day off and would just add the workout to another day and just do a double that day. But I don't know how you did it. What did you do, something similar or something different?
Well, so for me, as you know, because I even got a text message from you like midweek, being like, "Bro, you're in the red a lot. What's going on?" I was like, "Yeah, man, shit kind of hit the fan at work last minute," and um, that was definitely my intention, was to go into it being very HRV based, and it was going well that first week, but then once things started to ramp up, also. My girlfriend Valentina, she left for a week, and so there was, obviously an adjustment period there of, when you live with someone for quite some time, you guys have a certain, your routines are intertwined, and so when that part of you leaves, there's an adjustment period there as well. So it was just a lot of factors in that sense of needing to work around with my sleep and with my eating times, and then with work starting to get pretty nuts. We just launched actually a few days ago, and a lot has been put on my plate since then. So yeah, and I still had to get my miles in. That's the thing, I think, at the end of the day, and I think that's where you have to. Not you have to. I'll speak for myself. Where I believe that yes, all the Whoop stuff is great, all the HRV stuff is great. It's beneficial, and you want to do as much as you can to adhere to it. And at the end of the day, you are working towards a specific goal in competition, and sacrifices are necessary to achieve that. You know, training is not going to look perfect. And that's something that gave me a lot of sort of, it gave me a bit, not even a lot, because I'm not a professional athlete, but empathy towards people who are professional athletes, because I'm sure they run into the same shit. You know, they're humans, they have lives, they have other things that they're focused on. And I'm sure that training, you know, I used to take the perspective of like, you know, when an athlete is in training, I mean, that's what he's getting paid to do. So yes, of course, he's trying to um, do it as best as he can. But you know, your own psychology can get in the way, and life events happen all the time, and different things happen all the time. So you can fall into these traps or fall into issues, and your training is not going to be perfect, but you have to perform. So even if you had shitty sleep last night, you can't afford. Excuse me. You can't afford to not push it the next day, because you got to get ready. And Whoop even says that it's like, when you're overreaching, when you're overstraining on he's like, it improves your fitness in the long term, but can have negative effects. I mean, I'm sorry, it improves your fitness in the short term, but can have negative effects in the long term. And so, yeah, you just want to mitigate as much as you can when you can. And, you know, going into this week, realizing that, okay, you know, we kind of had a hiccup that's settling down. So ideally, it's going to be a little more, um, I can expect what's to come in a sense. And so now I can go back to capitalizing as much as I can on what I can, with the HRV, with the recovery, with all those things, and getting my miles in and all that stuff. And then there was also like, for example, you know, we talked about this on Dom's podcast, which was an awesome episode, and we can even talk about having a guest back on and what that was like. But for you and me, you know, we've talked about this idea of having community and creating brotherhood and all this stuff. And so yesterday I had went on a hike with a bunch of guys, and I was supposed to get 4 miles in that day, and my recovery was shit. And we hiked for like 3 hours. And so I didn't get my miles in, you know, so I'm doing that week over again today. And thankfully we are so far out from the race that, that I can afford to do something like that. And also recognizing that, like, what's the point if I'm not having, like, what's the point to prioritize, I'm sorry, to prioritize that awesome experience that I've been wanting for some time over this, you know, goal that I'm, you know, willing myself to get after, if that makes sense.
And would you in the future, if that happens again, like split the 4 miles, like maybe 2 miles in the morning, 2 miles when you get home? Or was it like there was no way you were making it at all?
Well, I don't think it was that it was no way. It was just like, my recovery is already bad. I had worked out in the morning. I will say that I did a workout in the morning before I left, and I got up pretty early on a Sunday. I did a workout, and then I left, and then I did the hike. And by the time I came home, I just wanted to relax and hang out with my girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like, I knew if I really pushed myself, I could have done the 4 miles. But I was like, in the grand scheme of things, you know, I just want to enjoy myself right now. And then I'll pick back up tomorrow and not get stressed out about it, because in the grand scheme, this day is inconsequential. If we were a month out, hell no, I wouldn't have even gone on the hike. You know what I mean? I would have been like, I'm a month out. I need to be as primed as possible, even 2 months out. But we're like 3, 4, I don't even know how many, like 5 months out right now. Yeah, 5 months out, right? So I got time, baby. You know what I'm saying? And to enjoy that time while I can. But yeah, so how about you? I know you had an experience a few weeks, either this week or last week, going out, and what that meant for you. And please just share a little bit more about how your experience was these last few weeks.
Yeah, man, that is interesting because like obviously since we started training, I made a vow to not drink at all. Like maybe a sip of wine, like from Karina's glass, but that's like the maximum. Um, so Karina and I, obviously, we live in the Bay Area. I've talked about this before. Like, you know, we're always looking to connect with people and make friends. So Karina has a friend out here, whose it was her birthday, I think last week, last weekend, and we were like, she was like, oh, she's gonna invite some friends. We're gonna go outdoor to outdoor like restaurant, Mexican restaurant. And you know, you could join. I was like, yeah, it'd be cool to like see other people, meet other guys, because there are gonna be guys there. And you know, we talked about this at Dom's podcast. So once again, like men need community of men. And I was like, cool, like I'll go. It was a busy day at work once again. It was a training day. So what I did was I just did my miles in the morning, got it out the way, so that I could do it later on. I mean, that can go out later on. So we went out and literally, dude, like I didn't drink. Everyone drank. I was just like, I had Mountain Valley in front of me the whole time. I didn't even drink the tap water that they offered. I was like, I'm gonna be fancy, go to Whole Foods and get my water. I had two, that Karina carried in her bag. So I had the water. We go to this Mexican restaurant. It's not horrible. They have like wild caught salmon and like grass fed beef. Like not bad for a Mexican restaurant. I was like, oh, okay. We don't find that often. So I was surprised at that. So I was like, cool. Got like a meat platter. There was some vegans there, by the way. That was kind of funny conversation. You know, but just anyway. So so not to say anything about vegans, but after reading Food Fix, I'm like, so we ate, and like we left around 9:30, 10 p.m. But just going to sleep an hour past the normal time just ruined everything. Like my strain was obviously high because I worked out in the morning. It was a stressful day at work. And then we were like running around doing things with our friends or whatever. So like my strain was really high. I went to sleep. Still, I had like 8 hours of good sleep. Like I had a full night, but I woke up with my recovery in the red, 28%. And I was just like, crap. Like it's not a rest day. It was a workout day. So what I did was I pushed the workout to the following day and just focused on recovery for days. I did a little bit of yoga. I just stretched myself out. Made sure I got some sun, drank a lot of water, made sure I ate nutritional food, took some supplements like magnesium and everything like that. My recovery got picked up again. But it's crazy. I was like, if I drank, it would have been like 5%. I think Karina's was like 5%, like single digit, which means like it was like, no, don't do anything today. So it was really interesting to see like just a change in something when you're, and you know, you can take that with a grain of salt in terms of the Whoop product, but it was the only day I was in the red the day after I went out. So it was just like, oh, like this has an effect. And as we get closer to training, these opportunities I may have to like be like, I can't. Because you know, the training takes precedence over everything else at the moment. So it kind of taught me that and just like I've been focusing on recovery a lot because I've been on a lot of yellow days. And just being like, okay, I need to be able to perform because I can feel the difference. When you try to work out on a red, you realize you can't perform the same way. It's really interesting. Whether that's running, you're like, why is this second mile hard today? It wasn't hard the other day. It was easy. But you're having some tough time, like getting your breaths in and keeping a good pace and all that stuff. Or when you're lifting, and I noticed that like sometimes the 44 kettlebell, I finally got used to it, but on days that my recovery isn't so great, I can feel it. Like I don't know if that's a psychological thing or something, but I'd love to hear from you, man. Like, what do you think about that?
Mm. Well, you know, that's it's funny you bring that up because that's something I've been thinking about and even listened to what I was listening to earlier today, which we'll get into in a bit. Which I think there's truth to the fact that you were in the red and you were under recovered. And I've experienced that too, where it's like there was a direct correlation between me being under recovered and my training being crap. And at the same time, though, there are plenty of days, like if I just had an awesome day, or if I'm listening to a great song, or if I'm listening to an awesome podcast, or if I'm just feeling good or got something done or felt validated, that doesn't fucking matter. You know, I can go out there and have a great run or have a great workout, you know. It just, it's a lot of times it does, I think, definitely depend on your mindset and your mood. And um, I mean, you don't want to depend on that all the time, you know.
Right.
I, I think that's where the whoop is absolutely important. Is you don't want to depend on just your mood all the time, because there are physiological things that are happening, and you want to stay on top of that. And the opposite is, I think, is true too, which is, you know, sometimes knowledge can be a burden, and we can, you know, become obsessive over um, we can become obsessive over these numbers and over these scores, and they can dictate what we think how we're supposed to perform today. um, and understand that these are, you know, these are all, you know, I was listening to, you know, actualize.org, right?
Of course.
So anyone who doesn't know actualize.org, go check actualize.org. Caveat, your mind might get exploded. Your mind might explode because some of the things he shares are,
It's
tell him, Ruben,
just
tell him.
you gotta have Google next to you because a lot of the things he talks about, you're like, what did he just say? You have to Google it real quick. At least that's how I have to listen. You have to be concentrating because he does say some mind blowing stuff that's just like, wait, rewind, hold on. I need to notate that. I need to think about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, really good stuff.
I remember distinctly a few times, especially at my last job when I worked in hospitality, where I was like, I can't listen to this dude when I'm going to this job, because I'll be in the middle of something that had just mind fucked me, and now I have to like go talk to people. And I'm like, I don't even know if I exist right now, so I don't know how you expect me to talk to anyone. But he's very insightful dude, like really really great, probably some of the highest consciousness material I've ever listened to, and packaged in a way that's like very direct and somewhat easy. Like when you think about how complex these discussions are, for him to package it as simply as he possibly can, he does a really great job. And I was listening to his series on the 9 stages of ego, which is a series, by the way, if you haven't listened to it.
Here are some of the most popular ones. Yellowstone.
Oh,
Okay,
Siri interrupted.
show your
Be listening to you.
show your mind. Anyway, sorry about that, guys. Uh, so I was listening to this episode, and one of the things that he said, which was really had me thinking, was you think about science, right? Or you think about religion, right? And what you realize in both of these scenarios is both of these things are man-made, right? These are things created by humans. So what we believe to be true about ourselves we only have, at least on the three-dimensional plane, on this sort of surface level understanding, we can only understand ourselves from the perspective of ourselves, because all science is only a perspective of ourselves. It's not something that was handed down to us by a higher source. I mean, you can say some science is definitely like that, but the majority of science is all based on the foundation of whatever man chooses to describe a thing. It's not actually the thing itself. The moment you begin to describe something, you're putting your subjective view on it. So therefore, it's not an objective reality. And when you can apply it to this thing, is like, you know, anecdotally and anecdotally, do these things exist where you see these correlations between recovery scores and performance? Yes. Is it useful to use those things? And I think absolutely. Uh, but One of the quotes he says over and over again in this series is, the map is not the territory. I forgot whose quote that is, but it's the same thing, which is like, all these things are just maps, right? They're just telling you about the journey. They're just telling you about the territory and where you're at, but it's not the territory itself. You are your own territory, and only through direct experience can you experience the territory, if I'm making sense. I know I'm kind of talking in circles. So at the end of the day, all these things are just tools, but you can override, I truly believe you can override anything these tools say to you by the power of your heart and by the power of your mind. And so you can, I see you nodding your head. What do you think?
I'm thinking about just who come to mind right away is David Goggins. I mean, he has a whole chapter talking about like when you think you're at your limit, it's called the 40% rule or something like that. When you think you're at your limit, you're actually only at 40%. You still have 60% in the tank. And ever since, like, obviously that stays with me in my head all the time. Just like, you think you're at your limit, you can definitely, I mean, I told you, I was like, thank you for the recommendation of Rising Phoenix. That is literally one of the best documentaries I've watched in a very, very long time. So inspiring. Like, Iron Cowboy was inspiring, but this had me balling at one point. Like 6 or 7 times, dude. And I'm like, we say like, like recovery score, for instance, like, oh, I'm at 28%. I have to work out. That's what I did the other day. After watching it, I was just like, that's BS. Like, these people are some of them are born that way, like no legs, no arms, missing some part. Some of them, unfortunate, tragic circumstance happens to them. That part made me cry. Like the kid who lost his mom at the watch, and he became one of the best, I think, long distance runners in the Olympics, in the Paralympics. Like, all those stories were just like, bro, I can't complain about anything. Like, point blank. Like, it was one of the most inspiring things I've probably ever watched as of late, that I was just like, yeah, I can't. And if anyone complains to me, I'd be like, watch this, and then shut the fuck up. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, I want to stop complaining. And as soon as I hear it, it's just like, shut the fuck up. There's people out there who could swim better than you, 10 times better than you, who have one leg. Like, that girl blew my mind. Like, she can dance in the water, do all these things, one leg. I'm like, how? How is that? And obviously the impossible, she made it possible, right? Or the girl who fences, doesn't have legs or arms.
I bawled like a baby when she
I bawled like a baby when she won.
And she just, like, you just see her like just explode with emotion. Oh man, it was
Highly, you listening, if you haven't watched it yet, please, I beg you to take an hour and a half out of your day and watch this goddamn documentary. It will make you never complain again. Like, there's no need. There's no need to complain. These people don't complain, and they still put in the work, Like, it just blew my mind. And things like that are just what keep me going, like, inspire me to do shit like this.
And that it's funny because I knew we were going to talk about that documentary on the podcast, especially when you posted the other day. I was like, Ruben's definitely going to bring this up. And something similar happened today where on my run, I just actually right before this, it came off of, I just did 3 miles, and I was listening to a podcast with Tim Ferriss and Jamie Foxx. And at some point, Jamie Foxx is talking about, I mean, first of all, Jamie Foxx is an incredible storyteller. And so listening to him share his stories, it just makes you feel good. It's just, you're getting such incredible insight into a part of the music industry, a part of Hollywood's history from his perspective, which was just incredible. And he starts talking about when he was preparing to play. Gosh, how did I just forget his name? Ray Charles. When he was preparing to play for Ray Charles, and he was working with him. And Jamie Foxx is a great impressionist. I didn't even know this, but he's a really great impressionist. And he starts talking about the experience when he's like sitting at the piano with Ray Charles. And then he's talking about how he was speaking to him and how he had this like really like soulful voice and was given great advice and and then he's just talking about Ray Charles and his life. And you start listening and you're like, wow, like this is a man who lived, what some would say is some of the most unfortunate circumstances. This man is a blind man. He's blind. But he lived an extraordinary life. And he did the way he made him sound, at least. I don't know who Ray Charles is as a person, and what I'm about to say, it's probably not true for who he is as a whole. But at least in that moment, what I felt was like, what he did, he enjoyed it to the fullest. Like at least playing on the piano, playing blues, singing, he did that with such joy and even Jamie Foxx when he's talking about his journey, through the industry, it all just sounds like he just was having a good time, and maybe that's how he's making it sound. But what I took away from that was like everything I'm doing in my life, whether it's at work, whether it's us with this podcast, whether it's with training, something I've noticed, and this is a lesson that I haven't learned again in a while, if that makes sense. You know how some lessons come back to you over and over and over again. And this is a huge one, which is like, where did all the fun go? Like I've noticed that I have not been having fun in my life again, and that's happened in the past. But I've noticed that again recently, which is like a lot of the things I'm doing right now are pretty awesome. My job's pretty awesome. This podcast is awesome. Having the ability to train for this race is awesome. There's a lot of awesome shit that's happening, but everything I'm doing it with a magnifying glass and just looking at all the errors that I'm making, all my constant shortcomings, all my insufficiencies, all my comparisons, all of these things. And it's like, why? Like, I mean, I know why. I know why I get that way. I know why I'm that way as a person. And at the same time, like my room for growth is have fun. Like, why can't you just have some motherfucking fun? And enjoy, as cheesy as it sounds, enjoy the process, which is, as I'm realizing more and more, like it is a difficult thing. It's simple, but not easy. You know what I'm saying? And so going back to HRV and Whoop and looking at those results and not complaining and all of these things, it's like I can be getting all the right sleep. I can be eating all the right foods. I can be doing all the right things and checking off all the boxes all the time. But if I'm not having any fun with it, I'm doing it all wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like all wrong. And it creates an inability to roll with the punches, because if you're only calculating your success by meeting these numbers, then the inevitability that you're going to constantly miss these numbers on a day-to-day basis is going to constantly put you in a place of not enough or not doing enough, versus being like, this is the goal. This is what I need to get done. And however it looks for me to get that done is what it's going to be. But the number one thing, and this is something I want to commit to moving forward, is the number one thing is that I'm having a good time while I'm doing it.
Right.
That doesn't mean I'm not doing it. That doesn't mean that I'm putting things off or not doing them to their completion or not doing them to the best of my ability. But I'm not stressing out about every freaking thing. However it looks that I need to get it done. If that means I need to wake up super early and go to bed super late some nights, then that happens. And I'm not going to be like, well, I'm only getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep. That means my recovery is going to be down and my inflammation is going to go up. So I'm going to
I've been there so many times, dude.
I'm just going to be like, fuck it. It's irrelevant what this one day is going to look like, in the grand scheme of things. And also knowing that like 80-20, right? What I do 80% of the time matters way more than what I do 20% of the time. So if 80% of the time I have the habits ingrained that I'm waking up early and going to bed early, I have the habits ingrained that I'm eating the right foods, I have the habits ingrained that I'm getting my training in. Those are already habits. These aren't things that I need to worry about. So when I miss, which I will, and everyone misses, which is when I miss the ball, I just catch the ball wherever it is and then keep moving forward.
100%. I had to learn that at my job, and even, something today, like it was hot today, and I had to do a double, like at least on the calendar, it showed the strength and conditioning and a 2 mile to make sure that I hit 11 miles this week. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go do my 2 mile first. So I did that, boom, nothing, nothing, thought nothing of it. Come back, go to train, and it was hot. That training was hard. Karina comes out and she's like, "You want to come inside?" so she's she's laughing too. "You want to come inside? You can put the fan on because you're gonna pass out." And I said, "No," and started laughing. I said no, and just giggled. And I was just like, I need to do this. Like, I just need to keep going. Like, I have some water. Like, I'll be okay. I just have a few more reps to go. But I'm like drenched with sweat. It's like the sun is beaming on me, and I'm just like, I'm doing this on purpose because it's a good time. And that's like the mindset that I kept, and I just kind of laughed to myself because I was just like, if I don't do that, man, and I try to like be like, I'm there and I'm working out, it's like I'm not gonna want to do this, in a few days. So I had to just make fun out of it. And Karina knows, like, throughout the day, I'm picking on her. I mess with my cat. Like, I try to like build fun in the day. And something like when I watched Rising Phoenix, after that I had to watch something, I had to laugh. So we watched a comedy show like with dinner. Like, that's a growth area of mine too, which is funny. Like, me and you are like parallel. Because like a huge room for growth for me. And this is in my day job and personal life. It's just like, bro, you need to like chill. Like, stop taking things so seriously. Stop being all about the work. Just have a good time sometimes. And I've gotten good at that at work. Like, I can adapt. Like you said, sometimes I drop the ball. I just pick it up where it's at. I don't make a big deal out of it. Oh, I missed sending this email at this certain time to this specific person that needed something from me. Doesn't happen often. But when it does, I'm like, yo, I missed that. I'm sorry. I won't make an excuse. I don't make an excuse. And usually they're really nice about it. Like, I haven't had anyone be mean about it. But yeah, man, I love that you bring that up, because I think when you get into something like this and you're training for something that takes a lot of dedication, sacrifice, it can be stressful at times because life is still there, that you just laugh about it. Like, laugh at life and the way the superior man, like, when these things come into your face, laugh at it or kiss it in the face and just laugh, have a good time. We only got this one life to live. So
I mean, it's
we gotta
just
make
like,
the best of it.
it's just like when we're on psychedelics, right? And like I've even heard you express this before, like if a dragon or some sort of negative entity comes into your vision, if you respond with fear, if you respond with anger, it just grows. But if you turn that dragon into a bouquet of flowers, then if you mold that energy into something beautiful, then it turns into exactly that. It turns into something beautiful. And this is super fresh. Like I said, I was just on a run listening to this and having that sort of awakening to that reality of like, wow, I'm really not enjoying what's in my life. And I think it also goes back to what you're saying, like when you're doing something where it's such a long process, right? Like, that's the other thing, which is really interesting because I've already paid for my ticket. I did not sign up for the refund, so like I'm there. I gotta go, and it's not something we've committed to it on the podcast. I've committed it to everyone I know. I've committed it to you, so it's not something I can just be like, well, I'm not going to do this. I've said I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, and what I started realizing is like, with that is because it's so far away, and I have to be committed to it for so long, every step of the way, it is not sustainable to be so hard on myself or be so aggressive and angry at every, like not angry, but serious about every step of it, you know? Because then what's the point? Like, what's the point of investing into something if you're just that you don't need to invest it? There's no capital gain for us to invest our time and energy and money into doing this race. We're doing it solely for personal growth and to
Mm-hmm.
have a good time, you know. Like, it's so funny, you know, because when we decided we were going to do it, we were like, oh, this is going to be so badass, this is going to be so much fun, like we're going to crush it, it's going to be a good time. But then you start training, and then everything leading up to that one moment, you're just like, oh, I gotta make sure I do this. Oh, I gotta make sure I do that. I gotta make sure. Oh, I fucked up. Oh, I missed this. Oh, and it's just like hell until you get there. Like, it doesn't need to be. And I'm sure I'm gonna get angry again. I'm sure I'm gonna take things seriously. But at least I wanna hold that intention of, let's have some fun with this. Like, let's actually enjoy what this looks like, and how what this process looks like, and that not to take everything so densely, you know?
Can I share something funny with you? So something I do when I run, no one knows this because obviously I run by myself. But when the app is telling me like you just reached your 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile, whatever the number is, every time I hear it, I do a hop skip. So like I'll just like in the middle of my run, I just do like a little whoop, like made another mile. You know what I mean? Just to like give myself those moments of congratulations because it's something I don't normally do. And actually, I got feedback from this at work as well. Like, I don't celebrate the small wins, whether that's for myself or for like my team members, or the students. Like, I don't do that. Like, I have other people that are like, hey, should we celebrate that? We should celebrate that. I'm just gonna put that on your radar. And I'm just like, oh, we should, like to me, it's just like get to the fucking goal, like just like get to it. So that's something that actually I think like 2 weeks ago I started. Like every time I hit a mile, I do like a little celebratory like hop skip or something. I do like I jump in the air and like clap my feet or something like that. Just something stupid and silly to kind of keep me going because once you hit like 3 miles, you're like, okay, this is getting a little monotonous. So I just do like something fun. It's
Yeah,
necessary, man.
you know, that's an interesting perspective, because what it makes me think about is like when I don't have a good day, like I said, either I missed the ball or whatever, I make sure I know, you know what I mean? Like, I make sure I know that I fucked up and that I didn't get this done and I didn't get that done and I didn't perform this as well. Like, I am clear on that. But those days, even today, like those days where, man, I crushed it at work, or man, I did something that was awesome here, or I had a great performance in training, or this or that, whatever it is, I never acknowledge it. Like, literally never. I never acknowledge like, wow, like, yo, you crushed it today. Like, this was a great win. Um, I never do that. I just assume that, well, this is what it's supposed to be. Like, this is how I'm supposed to live. Um, and not realizing that, like, when I'm performing like that, I'm performing at, sort of the edge of who I am as a person, like who I am under the best internal and external circumstances. This is how I perform in those days, at least to my knowledge. And then under the worst, or the lesser than optimal internal and external circumstances, I perform another way, you know, and I don't acknowledge that I'm this sort of person who swings back and forth between being best version of myself and being the worst version of myself. You know, I just constantly assume that whatever that best version of me is, that's who I am, and anything that's not that is a poor reflection of me. Does that make sense?
Kinda. It's like trying to adapt to it, but you're like having a hard time adapting when you go to either of these sides. Is that what I'm getting?
Just like, it's what I'm trying to say is, like, I'm not accepting that I'm a person who can live through different versions of myself constantly.
Right.
I just assume, and this is not a conscious thought, I just assume that whatever that best version is, that's who I am always. And anytime I'm not that, I'm automatically um, uh, doing something bad. And then when I am living up to that version of what I think I'm supposed to be, I don't even acknowledge it because I think that's what I'm supposed to be. Not realizing that, like, oh, I'm rising to an occasion, or that I really performed well that day. I just assume, well, yeah, that's who I'm supposed to be. So this is just another day, instead of, and it makes me fall short on both ends, because it's like when I don't perform to whatever that ideal is, I beat myself up. And then when I do
Right.
perform to that ideal, I don't even I don't even pat myself on the back. I don't even be like, yo, good fucking job. Like, let's do this again. It's like as if, like if you had a child and every time he got a B or a C, you yelled at him or punished him, but then every time he got an A, you were just like, you didn't even acknowledge it. So then the kid's like, well, what the fuck's the point of me even doing this if you're not even going to be like, if you're not even going to give me any validation for it? If the only time you're going to acknowledge me is when I fail, well then fuck it, I'll just fail, because that's the only time I get your attention. You know what I mean? So that's as you're saying that, I'm having this revelation. So thank you, my brother, because you just blew my mind.
That's why we do this. And it's funny you bring that up, because like something that the girl at the end of that documentary, and she said, and I put this in my post, like, I think it's like, if nobody believes in me, it's okay. But if I don't believe in myself, that's a real problem. And I think instead of the believing part, I think also when you don't like give yourself those moments of like, yo, you did a fantastic job. Yes, it wasn't a big deal, but guess what? Celebrate yourself. Be happy like that you did that, that you stepped up, that you ran the extra mile today, that you wrote an additional sentence in your journal this morning, or whatever these small things, you meditated for 5 minutes. Like, I think people like me and you need to work on that. Sorry, I don't know what the hell is going on with my voice. People like me and you need to do those small congratulatory things, because I think the way we grew up, the places we grew up, all these like things that we've been through growing up, and the work we had to put in for ourselves, like, working since we were 13 years old to make it ends meet, however which way. I think that for us, it's just like, this is part of it. Like, this is it. Like, we're doing what we got to do to get the job done, to make sure that we have, food on the table, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm strong enough to run this many miles, or whatever the case may be. But I think there's these small steps that we need to take. And, just the simple thing that she said in that, I was just like blown away. Like, that's so true. Like, we need to be good to ourselves. Also, I've been in many times like where I didn't hear external validation, like you just mentioned. Like, I don't hear it for a long period of time, and it'll get me down. And then I'll think about it and be like, why do I care? Like, I should be getting that validation from myself, from within, so that I can, spread the joy. And like, who cares? Like, I feel it. I feel like I'm doing a good job. Do you feel like I'm doing a good job? And they'll be like, yeah, you are. And I'm like, thanks. You don't say it, but I asked. You know what I mean? Like, I'll tell Karina, like, am I being good? Things like that.
You bring up a really good point, which is like, if you're not used to giving yourself validation, then you're not even going to have that thought to validate yourself. You know what I mean? If you're if you don't have a reaction, meaning like you give yourself validation and then that hypes you up, you don't, and the only time you have that reaction is when you get that externally, then you're constantly dependent on that, because you don't know any other way. You don't know how to, you don't know how to have that positive self-talk. And it's funny because, some people might be listening to this, especially if they're guys like us, and they could be like, that's some bitch shit. They could be like, all this positive self-talk shit is some bitch shit. But you look at a guy like David Goggins, who's considerably one of the toughest men alive, and that's right in his book. As he talks about it, he calls it the cookie jar. It's right in his book where he talks about, like, tell yourself all of the things that you've done where you've been successful, and let yourself know and feel that success, because in those times where times are tough, or where there's no one around you, or if life is,
You need to grab that.
you pull into the cookie jar, grab that cookie, and remind yourself like, yo, you're a fucking badass. But if you're not even acknowledging all the days, all the times, all the efforts that you've put in to get to the point where you're at, to just, or just small things that you've done that day, you're never gonna know that you're actually as awesome as you're constantly trying to push yourself to be. You know what I mean?
Right. And a lot of this I got from reading that book, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It, because like I think a lot of us go through, especially men, like going back to men, like because we're like, I need to get to work, I need to do all these things, I need to go, 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 go. And we don't give ourselves time to think and just like simply be like, how'd you do today, man? Like the little boy still lives within us. Like all of us. I was just listening to Iron John and he talk about that, right? And there's a whole chapter on like relationships and like, you know, like yeah, as an adult, you may be having all these great things, but if you ignore the boy and the little child in you for too long, it's gonna get sad, man. And then you're gonna realize, why am I feeling these depressive feelings? Why am I having these negative thoughts? It's because we're not feeding that little boy a little bit of love. You know what I mean? That comes from within. It doesn't really come from outside, man. And I think, you know, and I'm speaking for men because that's how I know from being a man, right? And being a young boy at one time in my life and seeing the young men that I work with and just like, yo, you're good. Like, don't worry. Like, we'll work on this. Like, whatever we need to do. You know what I mean? And what Dom spoke about last week. That's all I say. Just listen to the podcast. Like, you know. But it's important, I think, that we have that, especially when we're doing something as vigorous and monotonous as this training. Like, you just have to be like, hey, is the little boy having fun with this training? Like, is he having a good time running? Is he having a good time swinging that kettlebell every other day? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, you know, for me, and I've noticed this is, there were for a few years where I could not run. Like I couldn't run because my knees were so jacked up from training poorly at a CrossFit gym a few years ago. And this is before I knew anything about biomechanics and how to train properly. And I didn't have any good coaches watching me. So I was just bashing my ligaments and my joints, doing, you know, clean and jerks and snatches without any proper form or anything like that. And so for years, anytime I tried to pick up running, I after a few days of running, my knees would start hurting so bad that I had to stop. Like my knees would literally feel like I was like I was 80-year-old, 90-year-old man, and not a healthy one. You know what I mean? And so for years, I just couldn't do it. I remember walking in Central Park and just looking at people running and literally like sometimes wanting to cry because I'm like, man, I wish like if I was just able to run, I would do it all the time. And you know, one thing led to another. I found some really great programming on how to um, rehab my joints. And I, you know, I've spoken about this where I was spending 2-3 hours a day just religiously stretching out my body and reconditioning ligaments in my body to move forward. And I've never at any point even acknowledged of like, holy shit, like I'm running 10 plus miles a week now, you know, when I couldn't even run 2-3 miles a week. And I have not at all, like all I've done is like press myself about all the mileage I need to do and when I need to do it and how, and when I'm tired and when I'm not tired and how am I going to get this in? And it's crazy how quickly we forget. Just, you know, a few months ago, I would have done anything to be able to run again, you know, and how quickly our human cycle will be like, well, that's not good enough. Oh, now you can run, great. Now I want to see you run 20 miles. And now I want to see you do this, you know, or whatever it is. Now I'm just realizing like, holy shit, I fucking rehabbed myself. Like I rehabbed my body, you know? And even talking about it feels weird because it's true. It's like, I don't have those conversations with myself. So it's strange to even be like, yo, you fucking did that shit. Like, I don't even know. I don't even know what that sounds like, you know?
A
Um,
goal-oriented mind, man. We just like, I finished the goal, what's the next one? You know, we don't
mhm.
give ourselves even 5 minutes to be like, yo, you did that, man. Like, you did such an amazing job. And I've definitely been a horrible critic on myself. And I think that's what we do. We just criticize ourselves and then we keep moving forward without acknowledging, like, look how far you've come. Like, you know, like I always say, I'm 30 years old. I feel the healthiest I've ever been in my entire life. And something I was going to say that you mentioned earlier is that, you know, I know there's a lot of shit about social media, but what I've been loving the most is anytime I see the Facebook post is like what you post every day, like over the last, since you've had Facebook, like all your posts since you've had Facebook for the specific day. So today being the 21st, and just seeing like historically, like where I was back then. I love seeing those because then I could think it helps me not only with gratitude, right? Like being in a completely different space, but also saying like, holy shit, man, you lived in China for a year and you did that thing. Like you did that. Like, or you traveled to Australia and got to experience Australia, like which is halfway around the world, all the way on the bottom. You did that. Like, you know, all these like different like milestones that like have made huge shifts in my life. I'm like, holy crap. Like every time I get to see that, and I keep all my pictures up on top in like my photos app to you know, when I'm feeling that, I'm like, look at all the stuff you've done. And all of us have access to that, I think. And we need to notice these things much more that we've done in the past to help give us the fuel to push forward, you know?
It's not only for ourselves, because you even said it a little while ago, which is like at your job, people are noticing that you don't praise the little wins or you don't praise others, and I do that too. Like um, I wouldn't say I'm terrible at it. I think I'm all right, but I definitely don't give as much love to other people's success. And it's not that I don't want to. It's literally I feel uncomfortable a lot of the times praising someone else. And I think it's again, it goes back to like just not having that as a mechanism in my life, not having that mechanism of praise, of giving praise, of acknowledging someone else for their success. I think is absolutely something that what's within is without, right? So I don't praise myself. All I do is not all. I'm not gonna say all. I'm very often a critic of myself more than I ever am praising of myself.
A
And
cheerleader. Be a cheerleader of yourself, bro.
and vice versa. Like um, I've, it really takes like someone doing something for themselves that I consider monumental for me to be like, good job on that, versus just like making that a part of my rhythm of just noticing people when they're winning or when they're going above their limited consciousness and rising to the occasion and you have that choice in such little times every day. Like, are you going to choose the apple over the apple pie? Like, just those little things, like, that's a huge thing, because you have to be at a different level of awareness to even be able to make that kind of choice. But if you're constantly neglecting that, you're never going to see when you're winning. So
A
it's
100%.
true.
And it's crazy because like I remember recently I had a like an all staff meeting, just to give you this quick story. Had an all staff meeting and you know, I just felt called to give kudos to the entire team. Like we're a team, we work very closely together. There's 14 of us, and everyone their if their job was not there, it would ruin the whole like program. Like this program would not work if that one person did not exist. That's how like important everyone is in our team. And at the end of it, I gave kudos to everybody. And there was one point where I felt super awkward because
Mhm.
like people are just saying thank you. Some people are very uncomfortable getting this. I learned this from the book, The Love Languages of, no, The Five Languages of Work Appreciation. Same author as The Five Love Languages, made one for work. And I actually read this book a few months ago. And some people just cannot receive praise. Like it's a thing. Like people feel completely uncomfortable. They do not like it. Like they'd rather be appreciated other ways, whether that's through a gift, or a written note, like, you know, the typical 5 love languages, but think of it for work. Um, and I did that. I could tell like who was uncomfortable and who was just like eating it up and just loving it, you know? So it's like something to also keep in mind that like everyone's different. Like biodiversity, like we're all different internally, externally. And just like being able to read that or asking people like, how do you want to be praised? And also saying like, this is how I like to be praised when good things happen. Maybe it is not words, maybe it's a gift, or maybe it's something else, act of service or whatever it is. If you've read the 5 love, right now we can't do physical touch, so sorry, can't give you a hug, but you know what I mean, like I could try my best. But I think that there's something important when it comes to work, and just like in general. Like I'm hoping that by the time we do this race, for instance, and coming back full circle, is that we get to experience that, and that, you know, I'm trying to bring people out here. Hopefully everything works out. Like my mom, my dad, I really would love to see them there, as I'm like closing out that race, first and second day, and just like being able to like run into their arms. You know what I mean? Like there's something to that will be like, it'll be one of those things. If you ever watched the movie Inside Out, Disney Pixar movie, and then the memories, you watched that movie?
Yeah.
So the memories that are golden, or like prime memories, I forgot what they call them. It's like the main memories that like stay with you for the rest of your life. And it's like, I want more of those moments. And it's like, how can I build up more of those moments with everything that I'm doing? Because all this work, all this investment, the amount of hours, I would love to see how many hours we're putting in with the exercise every week, all the mileage, like all this together at the end of the Spartan, to see how many hours we put in investing, just for this. I'm not even thinking, I'm thinking more on just the hours of training, but also like the amount of times we have to like, you know, not eat the ice cream that is there because we have to train tomorrow. Like all these like sacrifices we've had to make in order to make sure that we do our best in this race. Like we said, we do still want to win. Like I remember one of the previews that we have is like you just starting it like, I want to win. And it's like, yes, I want to win too. Like I want to go for the gold. And you know, seeing this documentary even more so, I'm like, fuck, I want to go for the gold. I don't want to, like, there's nothing else. Like I just want to go for the gold.
You don't want
So
to
it's like,
skate.
what is that? Yeah, right.
Like, yo, I'm here. Like I'm here. Let's do this. You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you know, I think one of the last. I know we got to close out here. I also want to share just one more thing that Paul Chek says a lot, when he works with his clients, is he loves to ask, you know, when did you stop dancing? Or when did you stop playing? When did you stop writing poetry? When did you stop doing these things? And, you know, that's also something that came up just in my life in general, which I'm seeing is like, you know, for example, for myself, I have wrote poetry since I was a kid. It's something that I would say I'm pretty damn good at. Um, I've performed it before. I love writing. I love it, you know. And I haven't done it in probably almost a year, at all. And even before that, like the older I get, the less frequent I write. And every time I do write, and I write something that I worked at, I feel so proud of myself. I get so excited about it. And it's a huge venting tool for me, like for me to take whatever I'm experiencing and be able to put it on paper and into something that rhymes or is witty or is you know, something like that. I've always enjoyed, and I've just noticed like I don't write poetry anymore. You know, I don't this wonderful art form that, and I don't have many art forms, like, but this one wonderful art form that I have been gifted with to do, I don't use, you know, and that doesn't necessarily mean that I need to go back to writing poetry every day, but it's just an example of like, you know, what are those things in your life that you used to love doing and naturally did as a child that now you choose not to have time for, you know, and I feel like it is really a direct correlation between how serious are you taking life, you know, because I think the arts in our lives. And the arts can mean anything. It can really mean anything. It can mean whistling. It can mean whatever it is to you. But that sense of play, the less and less play you naturally or instinctively go towards, the more and more rigid and serious you're taking your life. And I think that's another thing that might be another good angle for people to look at, including myself, which is like, where can I create more play, and what does play even look like for me? What did play look like for me when I was younger? And how can I bring that back into my life? And it's incredibly difficult. Like everything we're talking about, these are not easy things at all, because I'm gonna wake up tomorrow with 20 Slack messages and this thing that I need to do for this person and this job, and I gotta go train, and I gotta eat, and I gotta call my mom, make sure she's doing okay, and like all those things are gonna come back right into our lives, after this conversation. So it is absolutely something that has to, at least for myself, has to become a North Star. And really, really, because it's true, like at the end of the day, we're all gonna die, we're all gonna
You
die.
talked about
So
Slack messages. There you go.
Slack message. What up, Slack? Um, so yeah, you know.
And I love that we're having this conversation. I hope it's inspiring to some people, and it is not like easy work. I mean, I've been working on it for 10 plus years now on this, and constantly like getting the relearning, like, oh yeah, I used to do this and I stopped, and I started again, and I stopped, and I started again, and I stopped. It's part of the human experience. You talk about writing, I talk about photography. Like I haven't done it, but it's something that I definitely want to not every day, but when we go out on weekends, just like pull the camera out and be like, let me just grab some shots, something that inspires me and looks beautiful. Let me like capture that moment, and bring it back. So, just because we're doing all this training doesn't mean that everything else has to stop. Um, and if it does, it's only temporary, because we can bring everything else back,
Oh, word! I totally. That's crazy. I've even forgotten that you have that as a skill, photography.
Right. Yeah, because it literally took the back seat like all the way in the back. You know what I mean? Like I
That's
haven't pulled on my camera, like all that stuff, like nothing.
Yeah.
So,
And you go on nice hikes too. You got opportunities to
I mean, I have beautiful photos on my phone, and I've shared those on Instagram and whatnot, and edited them and did like some nice stuff. But yeah, I don't bring like camera, like my camera, my big boy. It's also very old now. Like my phone's camera is probably better than that camera now.
yeah. That is something you have, that is a skill you have. And yeah, we both have an opportunity to jump back into those art forms and
Yeah.
play. And that's not the only way to play. There's so many ways to play it, but God damn it, go out there and play.
Go out there and play. That's a message to all you folks listening out there.
Man. Well, all right, let's wrap this baby up. You got anything else to say?
That's all I got, brother.
All right. Well, me too. This has been one of my favorite recordings yet, man. This has been awesome. I've learned a lot just in this conversation alone. I always learn a lot when me and you talk. So I'm happy we got to do it live here. So yeah, as always, if you guys enjoy this episode, please share with a friend. Please like it, leave a review. It means a whole lot. We just recently had our first guest back onto the show, Dominic Quartuccio. We talked about men's work, men's health, masculinity, what it means, how it shows up, how to improve it. If you're a woman, share it with a man. If you're a man, listen to it, share it with another man. It's an awesome episode, and we're so stoked to have guests back on. You'll hear me on the episode a little nervous in the beginning and dusting the rust off. So, but then we get into it, and it's an awesome conversation. So please go check that episode out.
And share it, because we need more men to listen to stuff like that, and women, obviously.
Yes.
But yes.
And we're planning on having guests back on again. And as far as Spartan Journals, we'll see you in 2 weeks. So thank you for tuning in. We'll keep you updated. And thank you.
Thank you, folks. Much love.